Hi, everyone. I'm excited to introduce to you Mike Lewis. He's a rising sophomore biology major at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. And a fun fact about him is that he's a competitor. He enjoys playing sports and competing with his friends, and he also loves going out to eat. Good luck, Mike.
Thank you for that introduction. As you said, my name is Mike Lewis, and over the summer, I had the pleasure of working with orthopedic surgeon Dr. Colleen Sabatini, studying the impact of educational resources on low and middle income countries, also known as LMICs. So many surgeons and LMICs have disadvantages in accessing educational resources. A large amount of modern education today is done online through digital literature and virtual collaboration. I think we could all agree that everyone deserves access to the best possible healthcare. So where a person lives should not determine whether or not an injury is correctly treated or leads to a chronic disability. So with this research study, we are assessing whether access to a particular online resource would improve healthcare and thus quality of life for people in these low resource regions. So the goal of our study is to determine what resources are utilized and needed by surgeons and LMICs and what factors are impeding surgeons from accessing them. So during this study, 10 teaching institutions were selected by OTA, or Orthopedic Trauma Association, for participation. They're located in Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Tanzania, South Sudan, Kenya, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Afghanistan. For the purposes of data analysis, they were categorized by continent into Afghanistan, Africa, and Southeast Asia. So trainees and surgeons at all sites were sent a pre-intervention survey to obtain data on their use of educational resources, both in school and in practice. 5 of these 10 institutions were granted access to the Orthopedic Trauma Association's comprehensive online resource for 12 months. And after that 12-month period, the participants were sent another survey asking about their experience with the website and how it impacted their practice. We're currently collecting those results and they will not be included in this presentation. So for this presentation, we will be going over the results of the pre-intervention survey. So there were 85 respondents, 23 of them practicing surgeons, 61 trainees, 75 men and 8 women, 28 from Afghanistan, 41 from East Africa, 5 from Southeast Asia, and 8 from West Africa. So when asked what educational resources did you use most frequently in training, participants in Africa reported that they primarily use online information such as digital books and websites, while respondents from Southeast Asia use more printed materials such as textbooks, journals, and Afghanistan participants indicated that teachers were the most used resource along with printed books and journals. So if you look at this graph right here, here we go. So I asked them to rank, or we asked them to rank their use from most to least. So 1 being they use it most frequently and 10 being they use it least frequently. So the downward trend, the smallest graphs indicate that they use it most frequently. So for the next question, we asked them, what is the primary reason that they use these resources? And 44.9% of participants indicated that they only use it because of accessibility. So 14.1% of them believe that only 14.1% of them believe that they use the resources of the highest quality available. So that means most of them are using things that they don't believe is the best resources available. On to figure 3, when asked what resources they wish they had access to, 34.4% of participants wish they had access to more online resources and 26% wish they had access to more conferences. Conferences being worldwide or conferences that bring orthopedic surgeons from different areas together to discuss ideas and new practices. The most significant barriers preventing surgeons from accessing the research they desire remain the same across all regions. There are locations, costs, internet access, and computer access as well. Only 40% of respondents had reliable internet access at home and 33% had reliable internet access at their hospital. So that means 60% of surgeons don't have internet access and computer access at home, and only 60% of hospitals, 67% of hospitals have internet access on site. So over the next month, we will be finishing the collection of this survey, of our post-intervention survey responses to assess the impact of this online resource on the participating practices. However, regardless of those results, it is clear that orthopedic surgeons and LMICs do not have access to the educational resources they desire. Additionally, the majority of practices do not have internet accessibility either, which makes it more difficult to stay connected with colleagues in other areas and stay updated on new developments in medical practices. So even when granted free access to this new online resource, limited internet access will still make it difficult to utilize the resource to its full capability. So the solution is not simply to give them new resources, but also improve internet capabilities so the doctors have the means to utilize the resources they desire. Thank you.
Excellent, Michael. So important that, rather than spending all this time developing new resources, you got to figure out if they can use them.
Exactly.
That is so key. All right, great. Theory, first question.
I have a question. You said that, I think Ellen just restated what I was thinking. But how does your project plan to improve internet capabilities?
So we wouldn't be able to help them improve, but we feel like it should be a global effort to help get internet access to these low resource regions, because it's putting out a really big disadvantage in terms of the medical and pretty much all professions in not having these access. So we would have to work with other organizations to help get these countries and more access to internet and computers as well.
Zane?
Yeah, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I just had a quick question in regards to language barriers, and more specifically, whether language barriers played part of a role in terms of the lack of accessibility for certain content, where if people didn't really understand different kinds of languages, they just couldn't access certain kinds of content.
Yeah, it did play a role, actually. As you see in the top two, in the second one right there, it says, yeah, it was a barrier, but fortunately it wasn't too big of a barrier, because it was one of the least significant barriers that's selected by the participants. So it was a barrier, but it wasn't anything that they couldn't get around. Location cost and computer access were the most significant barriers for them that they selected.
That's fantastic, Mike. I'm really impressed with this, and it sounds like this was also something that was surprising to you and your mentor, that going forward, or to how to focus your research going forward. Did you have those conversations with Dr. Sabatini about? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting, because in America we couldn't imagine only having 67% of our hospitals having internet access. Every single hospital here needs to have internet access, so otherwise they just wouldn't be able to function. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how they're still functioning with this lack of resource.
Okay. Great. All right, well done.